our Almighty God, Creator of heaven and earth, Father and lover of our soul, you sit on your throne of mercy and rule with your love and faithfulness. You are full of grace. We acknowledge your presence in our lives. Nothing is hidden in your eyes, even our challenges and struggles in life. We come to you with faith. We ask not only for our daily spiritual bread, but to seek your forgiveness and undeserving favor to heal our land, our family members, our friends and neighbors, even our enemies with COVID-19 and other diseases. Holy Spirit, help us to deepen our faith and see the opportunity to believe, obey, and worship. As we face this pandemic, you are Lord and God. Encourage us and change our hearts, not to fear, but to be full of hope and find ourselves praying and meditating your word. We believe no works of the enemy prosper to your children. Abba, Father, we believe that your Son Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. He is the truth and our salvation. Hear our prayers, O Lord, and most of all, not our will, but thy will be done. We pray this in Jesus' name, the name above all names, who was and is to come. Amen.
Naghahatid saya sa mga Pinoy, mga kanta at programang Tatak Pinoy. Napapanood at napapakinggan kahit saan ka man. Streaming worldwide. In South Manila, this is V81 Radio.
Malayo ka man sa iyong pamilya, dito ay hindi ka nag-iisa. Tiyak ito'y iyong hahanap-hanapin, dahil ito ang nagpapasaya sa atin. Kahit nasaan ka man, ito'y mapapakinggan.
V81 Radio.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program anchors and producers and do not necessarily reflect the policies and position of this station. Discover the best kept secrets in metaphysics, law of attraction, science, and spirituality, and listen to practical mystics from around the world. Let's open Pandora's box with Reverend Reg Stan, your metaphysical minister, here in Practical Magic, your practical mystic source, only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. My name is Reverend Reg, and I'm here again for another episode of Practical Magic, where we talk about practical metaphysical tools that are available to all of us so that we can make amazing changes in our lives, especially it's a new year and it's the month of January. And if you were listening to my show the other day, I was talking to a colleague of mine and we were talking about the power of what this month actually offers. So it's actually the month of starting new things, new projects, new plans in your life that you would like to accomplish step by step so that you can have amazing, powerful, and fulfilling breakthroughs this 2021. So today, I'm very excited because I have a colleague of mine, Dr. Anita Caprice, who's been guesting in our shows often. And at the same time, another colleague of mine who's an amazing artist, author, and also a metaphysical minister. So before I start and read to you their bio, I just want to invite everyone for a simple meditation and affirmation. So please close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and out. Take a deep breath in and out. Take a deep breath in and out. And I'd like to invite you to gently place your right palm on your heart. And let's chant Satnam 3 times, one for ourselves, the next one for someone we are praying for, and the third one for our global village. Satnam. 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 Take a deep breath in and out. All right. So it feels so good to actually do it together. And at the same time, I'm getting a lot of feedback from people who are tuning in and actually doing it with us. And they have some amazing stories to share about it. It lights them up, it just makes them feel better. So I trust that you will also make a practice of it. And I'm not gonna share more about it. I want to move on to introducing a good friend and an amazing colleague of mine. The first one is Reverend Andrew Espie-Whitburn. And one of the most amazing things about him, I'd like to share this story with all of you. Over a large portion of his life, he experienced and suffered from anxiety, depression, mania, and paranoia. He was diagnosed firstly as bipolar, then later as schizoaffective. He sought treatment over many years from GPs, a counselor, psychologists, and mainly psychiatrists, including taking many toxic and harmful psychiatric medications. He became very overweight from the medications, and his mental health was not improving. He was, in fact, getting worse even with the changes of medications. And he knew he needed to find a solution that was outside of what he had already tried. And with the mindset of finding a way to end this inner mental turmoil, he read and studied all he could on the mind and experimented with methods and techniques to overcome his anguish. And today, he's very pleased to say that he has indeed achieved this goal and he no longer has symptoms at all and have taken no medications for years either. This is when he realized that he had, in fact, found a method towards cultivating a new mind, therefore eliminating all previous symptoms. His personal experience is valuable in itself, and over time, he has undertaken further formal studies so he can offer his greatest transformational results. So, when people ask him if his results are also achievable for others to also experience, this is actually his reply. The path to better mental health is something that takes this dedication, real effort, and action. It is challenging, but it can work with you with having him as your guide, mentor, and coach, which he did not have during his transformation process. And due to the effort required, you need to manage your expectations about your potential first, especially when it comes to your growth towards establishing a renewed mind, because this is something that is up to the person to decide. So, without further ado, let's welcome Reverend Andrew, who's a life coach and an ordained metaphysical minister. Hello there, Reverend Andrew. Satnam.
Satnam, Reverend Reg. Thank you very much for that wonderful, warm welcome there. And I think you summed it up very, very well about, basically where I've sort of come from and where I am now. It was certainly a challenge, because when I first got into learning how to overcome my own mental health issues, as you pointed out yourself, I didn't actually have anyone to guide me, and I had absolutely really no background at all in metaphysics. I really didn't even know anything about it, nothing in spirituality. I just had determination that I thought, this cannot continue any further. And initially how I started was just reading everything I possibly could. It all sort of started with actually philosophy of all things. And that was the very first thing about trying to understand the mind. And from all the various philosophies that I'd read over time, I was just trying to understand everyone else's different point of views about where happiness basically comes from, or joy, or peace, and all these different things, and started to apply that in my life. And as time went on, I just learned so much additional information. But as you pointed out as well, it wasn't an easy path. I think if I had someone to guide me, it would have been a lot easier, like with the knowledge I have now. But essentially, what I did realize that, and I've done a lot of research, obviously, since that time when I first started in this to get the science behind a lot of aspects of this. But there's a lot of things we're taught as well that I found just not to be true from the medical field. And that's not just to do with mental health. I've found that through my own research anyway, in many areas. And it shows you sometimes the power of suggestion too, that because often we put people who have got certain degrees and that on a pedestal that they must always know. And that's not to knock down the medical field at all. I mean, it's great what we've achieved in that area. But unfortunate thing is sometimes is that we put them so much on a pedestal that they always know that what they say is always right. But I found that not to be true. And again, as I said, through a lot of study, other medical people have also said the same things, that there's a lot that we haven't really grasped about the human body and the mind particularly, which is a tremendous area. So just basically to sum it up there, it's just understanding the aspect of the mind was, well, the power of the mind. I mean, it's that old saying, mind over matter. And when you really understand the depth of what that really, really means, and really you realize how much power you do have in your mind, and you realize that a lot of the issues that we have in our lives, in our bodies, in our minds, it does come from our own mind, and it comes from this harmony of the mind. I mean, that's what the word dis-ease means, dis-ease. So dis-ease not just of physical ailments, but often of mental ones too. So anxiety and depression. And when you start to really pull those things apart and see what they really, what's really going on in the mind, it's not as hard as people think to at least alleviate some of the symptoms intensity, let alone, actually, as I use the word cure, that's not a popular word in mental health, but if you look up the definition, it's actually kind of what I've achieved, and I'm not alone, but that's why I wrote this book. Initially, it was because I thought it just had to be written, it had to be done.
Yes, thank you so much for doing so, because I know it's such a powerful content that you're putting out for me and the rest of our listeners to read, to learn, and to, reflect as well on our own lives. What techniques or strategies that you use that may also work for us. So thank you for doing it. I know writing a book isn't easy, so congratulations for doing it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Yeah, no,
I
it was a
also
big
want
learning.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm happy that you're also a painter, a visual artist. I think it's such a fantastic thing to get into. Although I'm not a painter or visual artist, but I love admiring other people's work when it comes to their creative output. So fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Well, you know what? I often say it doesn't matter what you like doing. For instance, a lot of people say they're no good at like painting or pottery or a lot of things, and I often say to people, look, it doesn't matter if you're the worst person at doing any of those things in the world. The main thing is you're enjoying yourself. That's really what matters. You know, I mean, I know it's good to do great artwork or great whatever sculpture, but I think that if anyone's enjoying anything, that's all that really matters.
Fantastic. And how is it now in Australia? You're in Sydney or Melbourne?
Down in Melbourne, just outside of Melbourne. Uh, are you talking about in terms of the current events of the world?
Yeah, yeah, in your area.
It's it was very very challenging over the last year. We had, from what I understand, I'm not a big one on watching the news. I don't get involved in that, but from what I understand, from what people have told me, we had some of the strictest lockdowns last year where I live, particularly, than anywhere else in the world, and it was very hard. I'm generally someone who's very okay with isolation, things like that, but it was a little bit over the top, to be honest, with some of the restrictions, and which it's not just my opinion. I mean, that sort of came out in many ways, but it eased up a little bit. But we had a few cases in another state, and now they've put some of the restrictions again. But it's still fairly good now. Like you only really need to wear a mask if you go into an indoor sort of setting. But you can walk around outside now. That's not mandatory anymore. There still is a bit of fear around about it. But I think it is certainly a lot better than it was last year. But we're in summertime here as well, so it's not as bad, I suppose, in terms of viruses with the heat, and plus being in Australia, the UV, we have very high UV here, and that generally kills everything. So yeah, so it's a lot more probably relaxed here than it probably is in other parts of the world at the moment.
Awesome. I'm glad that things are better now for you and the rest of the community, because I think it's such an important feeling to once again have that sense of liberation where you can move, because it was also tough for a lot of people here in the Philippines. So
Okay.
yeah, so also I'd like to introduce another guest of ours. She's been regularly guesting on the show, and she also has a lot of things to share with us, how we can make breakthroughs from her own personal challenges, and how she's able to transcend her limits and at the same time be able to empower herself and give opportunities for others to realize their full potential. So my other guest is Dr. Anita Caprice, who is a mother of beautiful twin daughters, two sons-in-law, and grandmom to Precious Five. She is an empowerment speaker and Michigan unemployment appeals advocate, founder of the Tap Into You movement, and author of Reflections of an Angel book of poetic affirmations. She is the developer of the Tap Into You Treasure Map Experience, self recovery card game, for self recovery curriculum, and other inner personal spiritual course material. Her message is all about empowering, inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting others as we spiritual journey together. And she does this in her own unique style of spoken word poetry, metaphysical counseling, or vibe coaching, teaching, continuing education, and life experience. In her 60s, Dr. Anita has reinvented herself with a message, especially for the fabulous 40 plus. It's never get it's never too late to get to know and start to grow your dream. And she is also a holder of a doctorate in metaphysical science certification as a meditation practitioner, teacher, transformation life coach, and Reiki master. And she continues to volunteer her time, talent, and treasure through pro bono advocacy work, coaching and consultation, metaphysical teaching, spoken word artistry, platform speaking, and philanthropy. And we also would like to congratulate her because she also received an amazing recognition for her work during the lockdown for women empowerment. So, welcome, Dr. Anita.
Hi,
Satnam.
Satnam, my son. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to have you and Reverend Andrew come together because Reverend Andrew is talking about mental health. And I know, Mom, you also have an ongoing project about suicide prevention. And I know that both of them actually complement each other in terms of what they're able to do for the community. So, Mom, I'd like to give the floor to you because Reverend Andrew shared a lot of his experience earlier. So, I want to know for you, especially you're handling suicide prevention cases, how do you deal with someone? Of course, there's something that I presume would be a mental imbalance or unrest. Can you explain more about it? Because I know that when someone doesn't experience inner peace, they're most likely to commit suicide.
Okay, thank you so much, and good morning, Reverend Andrew. Good to see you.
Thank you. Yes. Good morning to you.
The suicide movement, suicide prevention movement. One, it is mental health and suicide can go hand in hand. However, if someone has suicidal ideology and then moves on to the attempt and then actually do the thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a mental condition of a dis
Mm-hmm.
in their mind or a disorder in their mind. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there's a large percentage. It's called lethal reduction, where what you do is you remove the lethal item that can harm someone, because the thought of suicide can happen in an instant. It could be
Mm-hmm.
a trigger. So it doesn't have to mean that, okay, I have some type of mental instability. Something that can, an anxiety, something that can peak an anxiety. Because as a matter of fact, the ideology to the attempt can happen in seconds. And once you remove that lethal reduction, if that lethal reduction is removed, then 9 times out of 10, that thought from going from ideology to attempt, because there's nothing there, there's not that lethal item that can harm me, that thought, that thought that goes from the amygdala, it starts now coming to the frontal part of our brain,
Mm-hmm.
which is the logic, which is the, hold on, time out, wait a minute. And that can happen in seconds. So it's very, very quick. Now, sometimes, yes, there there is a percentage, but it's not a high percentage where a person actually sits, like it happens, like sits for weeks or months thinking about, okay, I'm going to commit suicide. Okay, I can't, I just, I can't deal with this anymore. Like I said, that does happen. However, often, see, that's why I'm very passionate about Tap Into You movement. For me, and I'm very passionate about the suicide thing, because it breaks my heart, because for me, my spirit tells me that when a person, an experience, when a person feels hopelessness, when they feel helplessness,
Mm-hmm.
that means we have a separation. There's a separation. We are feeling separate. We are feeling alone. And
Mm-hmm.
once we really understand, we can go into the faith, whatever we want to do, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, wherever. Once we surpass the religion and get to the spiritual and say, okay, I came here, number one, to represent the creator. I came here, number two, to recognize that my oneness with the creator surpasses incomes, careers, and all that kind of stuff. So for me, when a person gets to that state, what that is telling me is that what we have been taught, and sometimes that angers me a little, you know what I mean, just because I'm passionate about it, because I know I grew up with thinking that that source is outside of me. I grew up. I since I can remember, and it started before 16, but at 16, that's when I began my spiritual journey, because this outside stuff just didn't work with me. You know, you got to go to one person, you got to go, this is outside, something in heaven, and all this kind of, and I just had issues with it.
Yeah.
So for me, for me, I believe, that once we know the truth, that there is a source, and Lord have mercy, that source lives in me. There
Yes.
is a source, and Lord have mercy, that source lives in you. And once we truly not understand it in here, but understand it in our heart, you know, and I had a conversation with a beautiful sister friend, and we were talking about the heart, and we were seeing how some, you know, the heart, you know, in some parts, in some divine books, the heart is considered evil, and I said, you know, I can see that, but I believe the heart is just like the earth. The earth has layers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You have the outer crust, you have the inner crust, and you have the mantles, and then you have the core. Well, just like in ancient Egypt, back in ancient Egypt, they said that's your truth center, your heart. The scientific community is beginning to say, okay, the heart is more than just a muscle. So I said, okay, yeah, there may be bitterness, and there may be, you know, player hating, you know, all that kind of stuff in our heart. But at the core, when we reach the core, that truth center, that's the part that we want to get to when we meditate. We want to
Yeah.
we want to go past all that player hating, that grudging, that unforgiveness, that intolerance of other people because they don't think like we do. That may be in the heart and in the head, because there's two minds. There's a heart mind and there's a head mind. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel, as far as getting back with the suicide, I I just know, not believe, I know in my heart that once we understand that yes, we are humans, but yes, Lord, we are spiritual beings, and we are connected. I'm connected with you, my son. I'm connected with
Mm-hmm.
you, Reverend Andrew. I'm connected with the technicians. I'm connected with everyone. We are connected together, and we are connected with the I am that I am. And once we understand that, I mean, from the depth of our heart, with our soul, once our soul, that little one really knows. She knows, you know, he knows. He said, okay, here, I'm ready for you. Let's get together so we can recognize this thing. Once we really, really come into the three, and we can say Holy Trinity,
Mm-hmm.
conscious, subconscious, unconscious, mind, body, spirit is never affected by this stuff. I mean, sometimes we say, oh, our spirit is kind of out. Spirit ain't never unaligned with nothing, because spirit is not attached to this earth. We're like, you know, y'all need, you know, our spirit be like, okay, it's our soul that is connected, because our soul, with our emotional baggage and everything, our soul is connected with our humanness. So that's the part that needs healing. Once we connect our mind, our body, and our souls, and know that we are one with the divine source, I really believe, know from the bottom of my heart, the suicide rates would go down. That's my take.
Thank you for sharing that, Mom. It's amazing that you're sharing it in such a manner that's very powerful. And I think for a lot of viewers, this may be a new information. So, for those who are watching and you're wondering what we're talking about, please feel free to ask whatever questions that you have, because today our intention is to actually talk about how do you break through this 2021, because in the case of Reverend Andrew, I think it's such a powerful story to hear. Especially, you mentioned you were already taking medications and you were on a bit of weight, more than what was ideal for you. And it's really amazing that you shared that you went in this self-study mode and self-discovery mode, and it was actually that self-study, self-discovery mode that helped you get out of that pattern where you were taking medications and going through those periods of restlessness. So please tell us more about it. Was there any incident that led to the depression?
Yes, well, this is very interesting because I think that, well, I'm going to talk specifically, I won't talk about all mental health, but we'll talk about some of the most common ones, such as depression and anxiety. That through my understanding and research, my strong belief in this, and I think it's a little bit more than a belief, but I'll go with belief for now, that these things, they don't come from nowhere. This idea that things are hereditary, for instance, that it goes in the family, well, if we're going to get into the science of what's called epigenetics, we'll find that that's actually not actually true. That's a new science. We're still taught an awful lot of old science, is what I was sort of touching on before with the medical aspect, that this idea of chemical imbalance and all these sort of things. Well, that's not true either. That's just been shown to not be true. Okay, if there is an aspect to it, it always comes from our thoughts. But really, when you get to the core of where a lot of our problems come from, it's very, very deep-seated within the mind. So, for instance, what happens through our lives, generally it happens between the years of the age of, say, early from when we're born to the age of 7. Our brain is actually in a brainwave state called theta brainwave, and it's not an analytical aspect of the mind or the brain at all. So what happens is during that time, when a child is subjected to any kind of thing that they feel, well, some things are traumatic. Some people definitely have some traumatic experiences. There's no doubt about that. But even our perception of something, like what may not have been intentional, say from a parent, for instance, they may have treated a child a certain way out of anger or something, but that may have been a very deep-seated event for that child between the age of 0 and 7. So what happens is, because they've got no critical or analytical skills to really process that, they might think, my parent yelled at me, therefore I must be bad, and I think bad people don't deserve this. And then it just branches out to all of these other things and beliefs that you set up about yourself. So then you think, well, and wherever it comes from, the child thinks, well, then bad people don't deserve to have good relationships, or bad people don't deserve to have good in their life in any way, or they don't. So there's an aspect of that. But then emotions are also then attached to these programmed beliefs. And it gets really, really messy in there, okay? Now, that stuff doesn't get cleaned up. Then as we get into, adolescence, which is, we've got the hormones and things going, so that gets a bit crazy. And then we get into adulthood, and we've got all of these programmed beliefs deep down with the subconscious mind. And, I mean, it comes out in so many different ways. So these things do, therefore, create these depressive aspects, anxiety and things like that. I mean, as I said, the mind is such a complex thing, and things can trigger it off in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So the way I've sort of looked at this as time's gone on, and I've really delved deeply into the science of all this stuff, because, as I said, when I first got into this, I was in the dark. I really didn't know where I was going. I was just reading everything I could. And now, as time's gone on, I've really got some concrete understanding of all this to do with the brain, mind, because the brain and the mind are not the same thing either. A lot of people will not realize that we're dealing with the mind. The brain is a biological aspect, and the mind uses. But the mind itself generally has, well, you'll hear different things on this, but we'll keep it basic. There's 3 components, which is the conscious aspect of the mind, the subconscious, which is where all those programmed beliefs are, and then there's what some people might call the superconscious, the higher conscious. But really what we're talking about there is our Christ mind, or our, and I'm not going to get right into that right now because I don't want to get way off topic what we're talking about. But the thing is, with the depression and anxiety and all these sort of things, is the first thing we need to look at is that the approach is a holistic approach. And that means we've got to look at many areas of our lives. So what happens often is people go to a therapist of whatever kind, and it's not to put down, I mean, any therapy, that, whatever, if something's working for you, absolutely go for it, okay?
Yeah.
But what a lot of the time they don't look at is we have a lot of things that people aren't aware of how it affects their own mind. So, for instance, if you're subjected to, well, a good example is the news. If you're just watching day in, day out of how terrible things are in the world, and you've already got a lot of anxiety, and you're hearing how the economy's going down and all these other things, and then just fear and murder and all these other things, and you've already got this going, this fears anyway about these sort of things. Well, you're sort of working against yourself. It's just going to keep on getting worse for you. But then also we're going to look at the sort of foods that we're eating, because food does actually have an effect on our biological aspects of our bodies and our minds as well. The relationships that we have, if we've got disharmony between people, and a lot of that happens with people in their families. There's many different aspects of our lives that we need to look at from as I said, all aspects of our lives. We can't just look at this one thing. We need to look at everything and start cleaning it up. But once we've done that, we need to dig deep down into the aspects of the mind. So we need to look at, as I said, we've got to start to look at how we pull out these programs and beliefs. And going a little bit off the side of anxiety and depression for a moment, an example would be somebody who finds that they self-sabotage themselves an awful lot in relationships, and they might be consciously aware, wow, gee, I do this, I don't know why, this good thing happened to me, but every time I get good, because somewhere in their mind, for instance, they don't believe they deserve it. So their subconscious mind kicks in and it just destroys it for them somehow. It just gets in there, and they might be constantly being, watching what's going on, think, well, what's going on? They see themselves doing these things, but they don't really understand why. But that's the sort of same aspect with, with a lot of anxiety and depression. But the other two, the simple things about anxiety and depression as well, put it in a simplistic way, is that a lot of the time when people are depressed, they're dwelling on the past. And a lot of the time when they're anxious, they're worrying about the future. So the state of mind is never really in the present moment. It's often staying in the past or going in the future. So, and you'll find, you two will be well aware of this, about this aspect of being present. But it's such an important thing to do, and meditation, for instance, is a very useful tool to help with that. There's a lot to say about this, but I'm hopefully giving you a bit of an overall here of aspects of the mind. But I might come back to a little bit depth as we progress in the show, because I probably just want to think a little bit more about how I could sort of best try to give the listeners or the viewers maybe some tools or something like that to look at. But as I said, the mind is a complex thing, but it's not. One thing is, I think I'd say right now, is that we need to get beyond the belief that you cannot get better. It's not always easy, but it is, as I said, it's a holistic approach. We need to look at every aspect of our lives and clean it up. You cannot be watching awful things, and then at the same time be thinking, I'm going to have a peaceful peace of mind. Some people think they can do that, but they don't realize sometimes, what's going deep down inside the mind, especially if you're watching, say, a whole bunch of horror movies, 5 hours before you go to bed. Well, it's not a great way to go to bed, for instance. These things do get deep down in the mind, and we've got to be really careful about what we expose ourselves to, because the mind is like a sponge. We're all very sponge-like. And we need to be aware of that, so that if we're seeing things that keep on, pulling us down in some way, it's not to mean we can run from everything. We need, we still need to live in the world. But we need to be aware of that, because, on the deeper level, I think you'd both be well aware of this too, that we're really, at the very fundamentals, we're dealing with energy. Because, this is a science as well, that they realize that all matter itself is actually energy. But thoughts are energy, and everything, everything you eat is energy. Everything you do, just everything's energy. So when you realize the whole life is an interplay of energy, we need to be very careful about what we're exposing ourselves to, and sort of mitigate anything that's really aggravating us and bringing us down. But I said there's a lot more to it than that. We really need to get to the core a lot of the time of what these beliefs are that we have, these program beliefs we have within ourselves. And find them and remove them. And there are some pretty great advanced techniques now that I've studied over some time now, where we can help to release the subconscious a lot of these programs. A lot of people might be aware of affirmations, for instance, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with affirmations. They're absolutely great to use. We should absolutely use those. But in the context of what I'm talking about, there's some faster ways to go about it, because affirmations can and do take some time. And absolutely nothing wrong with them whatsoever, and they're very useful, especially in a meditative aspect. But when we're getting to any kind of really, really deep stuff, there are some other ways, some other tools and techniques, which need to be learnt, in which we can use to alleviate those things out of our system. And I really do believe that everybody has potential to change and get better. As I said, it does require some effort, does require a little bit of effort. But it is possible, absolutely possible.
Thank you for sharing those, Reverend Andrew. And I believe that what you just mentioned about the beliefs that we have, and especially I particularly like what you mentioned about watching horror movies, that how it gets deep into our subconscious mind and we get programmed. And then why all of a sudden you're asking yourself, you have a restless mind, especially before you go to bed. So we'll talk more about it, but for now, we'll pause for a short commercial.
Sure.
We'll be back shortly. This is Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Connected ka na ba para laging updated sa mga bagong shows, promos, trending news, viral videos, events, o patok na OPM hits? Just follow us on Facebook at V81 Radio Manila. Simple lang, itype lang ang letter V81 Radio Manila. O, di ba madali lang? Kaya i-like at i-follow na. Want to see who will bring home the win? Get ready for Napalm Music Awards. Now back to Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. We're back here for Practical Magic, and I'm your host, Reverend Reg. And we're talking about how the different aspects of our mind actually cultivate to bring about experiences, especially earlier we were talking about beliefs and how these beliefs actually bring about experiences in our lives, whether you like the experience or you don't like the experience. So it would be awesome for all of us to find out how do beliefs actually affect our lives, especially Reverend Andrew was talking about why what we are watching actually gets embedded in our programming or the subconscious aspect of our minds and how it actually affects our inner being or inner peace. So I'll give him the chance to explain more about it.
Well, thank you, Reverend Reg. So,
Yes.
for instance, to show a point about understanding how the subconscious mind works, going back to the horror movies for a moment, a lot of people when they watch, whether it's horror or a suspense film, when they watch these things, they do get a bit of anxiety sort of come up, or a bit of tension in the body, or sometimes they sweat a little bit, and sometimes people scream when they watch these things. Now you might ask yourself, why does it actually happen? Because the reason is that the subconscious mind does not know the difference between a real or perceived experience. Now this is why visualization, if anybody is actually familiar with this, where you essentially it's just closing your eyes and imagining things. When you get in a deep state of visualization, for instance, your subconscious mind does not know the difference, but it also does not really know the difference between a lot of things that it's perceiving. So if you're watching something that is then evoking an emotional experience for you, and your body starts to physiologically respond to it, it does not know the difference between those events, and it stores these things within itself. So this is why it's really, really important about what we expose ourselves to. And I know, as I said, a lot of the time people don't realize about what we actually do expose ourselves to, how much it really gets in there, and also through repetition of doing something over and over again, even more so. I mean, we know that with affirmations, saying something over and over again does have an effect on subconscious in time, but it's the same visually, because the subconscious mind understands things in a visual sense, even more so in a verbal sense. So this is why, we really need to be careful about these aspects of our lives. But it's not just in movies; it's the music we listen to as well. It's the environments that we go to and spend our time. It's just we need to become very conscious of these things. It's not to be afraid of these things; it's just becoming conscious of it. Doesn't mean we never watch a horror film if that's something you enjoy every so often. But it's just being very mindful about these things and being aware about how things may be affecting you in your life.
Yeah.
So that's that one aspect of just for instance, the movies.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Reverend Andrew. It's such a powerful thing to realize, especially a lot of us, we all started with metaphysics, with step one being unaware, moving to uh, experiencing certain things that really shook us up and then made us ask questions. That's why we all got curious about metaphysics. And I know Dr. Anita Caprice has a lot to share about changing your vibe, especially tapping into you. So whatever has been programmed to you, you have the capacity to shift. So I'll give the floor to Dr. Anita.
Thank you, Reverend Reg. And I was a little remiss earlier. Welcome, so beautiful audience. I didn't say that, so I wanted to make sure I did that. Thank you, Reverend Andrew. You know what? You are so right as far as the programming and the mind. Now, and the energy. When you mention energy, because that's when we get that spirituality with that scientific, law of thermodynamics. Energy can be created. It cannot be created, cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed. And
Yeah.
about the movies kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like, and a large part of what I do, what I try to share with people, because our overall thing is to help people step into their fulfillment. And, once we resonate, like you said, how often we look at a movie, that's the frequency of energy. How
Yeah.
often we do something. We are energy. We are energy. So we have the vibration, which is the measure of the energy. So when we are like, we're attracted to these horror movies, we're attracted to drama, we're attracted to all kind of things that kind of get us mad or kind of get us sad or kind of get us doing all that kind of stuff. We're simply vibrating at a low vibration. And my thing is like, the whole premise is okay. Is to guide. My thing is to guide with a kiss. Keep it simple, sweetheart. And I would share with people. I said, it's one of those. If you're when what happens when you're feeling happy? When you are feeling happy, like, wow, I really feel good today. What happens? You ain't even thinking about no horror movie. You want to watch some stuff. We want to watch love, and we want to, you know what I mean? We want to
Yeah.
do all this kind of stuff. We find that the day is happening. Go to the store, the parking space right there. People everywhere you go, people smiling at you. That's because we are resonating at a high vibration, the
Yeah.
vibration of it. You know what I mean? And then the speed,
Yeah.
the velocity of it, like Nikola Tesla. He said, if you want to know the secret of the universe, think in terms of frequency, vibration, and energy. And I add the other one, velocity, because the speed at what something comes. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if we're resonating at a low vibration, we talk about manifestation and visualization and vision. I think too, a part of it too is in our states, in our mental states, is a lot of times, we talk about goal setting, we talk about visualization. Well, just my experience, I'm 64 years young, one of them alluringly seasoned and marvelously mature women. So I have got a little something under my belt. And what I've learned here is that visualization is different from vision, because I visualized a sharp Celica years ago. But you know what? Because we get what we got power. King David said, hey, you got dominion over this thing. So I visualized that car. Now, what happened
Mhm.
was 3 men came on my job and took that car away from me because I fell back on my payment. Now, I visualized that thing, but was it parallel to the vision? To the vision
Mhm.
of what I should be doing? No, it's not. So so sometimes we get into sometimes our mental state is because we are I call it tuned. We are not tuned, and I call it unipersonal energy. So my thing is too is once you recognize and you are in alignment, you are tuned with the universal energy. Like you mentioned earlier, Reverend Reg, like this month, we're in a year of change. We're in a year of
Yeah.
change. This year is going to teach us either how anal we are or how flexible we are. And it's going to teach whether freedom means letting go of stuff. Maybe I didn't want to go because I didn't want to let go because I was out of tune. It is going to teach us that this month. And I love it. This, knowing about the energy, the universal energy, as far as our mind and connecting the energy of it all. Once we know, like, the energy, the universal vibe for the month of January is love. What a beautiful way to bring in a new year. It is the law of materials, supply, and of cosmic love. And then once you do universally with your personal energy, then if I know, okay, this my universal energy, this is cosmic love. Okay, so what's my personal energy? My personal energy may be love and affection. That means, okay, this month I need to take a look at me. I need to do some self-love for me. You know what I mean? So that I can project that self-love with someone else. So a lot of times for me, I'm learning, because years ago, I used to think in terms of rose-colored glasses, and my family would get on me. They would say, "Angel, you look at things through rose-colored glasses." They didn't mean that in a positive. That was very negative. Like, you naive, all this slow with all this. I said, "What you doing? Look at you." I have learned, y'all. I have learned in my experience that, and I started praying. I said, Father, Mother God, I want to start looking at through life through rose-colored glasses. Because I have learned, I allowed other people to convince me that it is not good. It's wrong to look at life through, why not can I not have fun? How come I can rely on a source and say, hey, I know everything is in the Bible. I don't have to know how. I don't have to know how. I don't have to know why. All I know that what is for me is going to be, it is for me. So my thing is, now it's like with the mental state, and I'm conscious of, there are times, because are we going to resonate at a high vibration all the time? No, not at all. So sometimes, but the recognition, because I know sometimes when I'm doing that stinking thing, and I say, okay, what you doing? And I might say, yeah, I want to still stay here for a minute because I'm enjoying it, but that's my choice. You know what I mean? That's my choice. But at some point, you start saying, I can't afford to be thinking like that, because now that I've tasted and how easy it is to resonate, in other words, to be happy, to practice notology, laughter at least 3 times a day, to have a lighter heart. Once when you start realizing and things coming to you, being drawn to you, once you start understanding that, you be like, I can't afford the drama anymore. I can't afford the inharmonious people in my life anymore. I cannot afford any of that stuff anymore, because this is, now I've got a taste of this. I want to taste this and bring others with me in this state to help bring the fulfillment of others as we journey. So yeah, I agree. I so agree, Reverend Andrew, that energy. I mean, when we stop, I'm with Nikola Tesla. If you want to know, hold on, start at the first, start with the energy, become alive, know who you are and what your energy is. And knowing knowledge is power. That's the Chokma, that's the masculine energy in us. You know what I mean? Then we got that feminine energy that do that creating of our ideas and different things like that. So that's there you go. I don't want to keep going on.
Awesome. Anyway, thank you for that, Dr. Anita. And I want to sum up what both of you said, because it makes a lot of sense, especially what Reverend Andrew was saying about visualization. And I think it's something that's so easy and effortless for him to do, because he's a visual artist. So it's a lot easier for him to express himself energetically in that area through visualization. And I also like what you mentioned, Mom, earlier about energy, frequency, vibration, and to connect that with what Reverend Andrew mentioned about the power of repetition of certain statements that can actually shift the quality of your energy. And I want to connect that to what you said about velocity, because I believe that when you're actually in that space where you're already affirming a more empowering statement compared to that place where you're feeling lack, limitation, or any form of negativity, you have the power to shift it. But one of the reasons why I invited Reverend Andrew tonight is because if you notice his Facebook page, he's the type of person who also does what he loves to do as a painter. And for me, honestly, if you want to maintain your high vibration, one of the best ways to do that is to do what you love to do. And and I want to ask Reverend Andrew more about it. How are you able to find time? And I'm honestly amazed that you're finding space for you to express yourself artistically, because a lot of people that I meet, even if they have creative talents in the visual arts, they don't want to pursue it because they're afraid it's not going to make them money. So
It's a
please go ahead and share with us what your secret is and why you're so courageous with pursuing your passion.
That's a really great question, actually. It really is, because out of any area you want to go into, if you generally say art, most people just think away straight. It's exactly what they think. Oh, how am I going to make money out of this? But I mean, I've cultivated a mindset of just belief in myself. For starters, is one aspect, but even beyond that, I've redefined what success really means to me, and I think that's something that's really worth talking about, because in our I think culture worldwide, mainly, we have this idea success equals how much money you can make.
Yeah.
But it's really, I mean, I've met people all from, I mean, even in my background, I don't, do you know this, but my background was actually in architecture for most of my life, right? So I've been around people who actually had a lot of money. And I've met people who had a lot of money and weren't very happy, but I also grew up in a very, very poor area, and people didn't have any money there either. And a lot of people weren't happy there either. So it didn't really matter if you were not, very, very, very poor or very rich. You could be unhappy from there, there from anywhere in between those two places. So it's not about money. So we've got to get this mindset out that, I'll be successful if I have X amount of money. Success really comes down to how fulfilled you really feel in your life. And when you find fulfillment in your life, I found this, the money really doesn't matter. And often what happens as well, which can happen, is that when you just pursue something for the love of it, I mean, this doesn't necessarily happen with everyone, and there's different reasons for this, but if you pursue something for the love of it, the money often can follow. And a lot of the time when it doesn't follow, there can be program beliefs about that. It's not just about, see, this thing we're talking about before about program beliefs, it's not always going to relate to sort of trauma or come out as a mental health problem of any kind. It can come from limitation. So program beliefs can also, people have deep subconscious beliefs that they think they can't achieve this thing or they can't do it. Some people, that's why a lot of people don't even try anything, because they're in their mind that they've got whatever going on. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people don't ever try. I've been very fortunate in my life. I think probably also having the type of mother that I had. I said, even though we grew up very poor, and that hurt, and without education, what she achieved in her life was quite remarkable, especially coming up when at a time when it was still very much a male-dominated sort of area in corporate and things like that. And she achieved quite a lot. She did very, very well, and I think that I got a lot of determination from that in itself. But I think as time's gone on in life, anyway, look. I've realised that I've had reasonable amount of money before. I've had not so much, but a lot of the times in my life when I thought back in my younger years, when I didn't have the most amount of money, it was actually a lot of the time when I was happiest because I was doing what I like doing.
Yeah.
So that's where I found success. So I didn't get sucked back into this idea of I need more to be happy, because when you realise a lot of the time that a lot of us already have enough, and we don't. I mean, for instance. I say this to a close friend of mine who's actually quite wealthy, and I say to him, I said, I'm actually one of the richest people you'll ever meet in your life. Now, that most people would think straight away, monetary, show me the millions of dollars or billions of dollars, but it's rich in my consciousness, because I think a part of this comes from gratitude as well. I am so grateful every day for so many things. I'm just so aware of everything, and so. For instance, I mean, I've got food. I've got good quality food. I have good quality food every single day, which, I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily have that. And I mean, I live in a beautiful place. Just everything. I'm absolutely blessed, beyond belief. Absolutely,
Yeah,
just been
yeah.
blessed incredibly. So that determination in going forward, it was always like, well, it's not about the money. It's about what I guess it's a life sort of purpose in a way. For instance, my two things has always been about beautifying the world and beautifying the world through my own creative aspects, but also beautifying the world through, for instance, talking about my book, for instance, beautifying the world through helping other people's minds, to go through what I've gone through. And for instance, with my book, I wrote that book, for instance, it wasn't about the money. Yes, if you get a little bit extra, great, whatever, but it was never about that. It was about what needed to be done and what I believed in. And I believe in helping people and beautifying their minds, and I believe in beautifying the world through what I can creative-wise. So when you've got that, look, in my mind, I'm already successful because I've already got that. I can't ever fail because I'm already doing what I believe in. So, and it's not about the money. And when you've got that sort of mindset, I think that you just can't fail, So, and I know you still got to get put food on the table, and maybe some people have to do a job that they don't particularly like or something like that. But again, it's mindset. We can change that. We can look at things in a way that cultivate a mindset. That's the thing. We've got to cultivate a mindset in our lives and everything we look at. And when the negativities get in, we just got to find a way to just cut them out. And that's about being conscious within the mind. Like, for instance, I just, as soon as something comes in my mind, I've just gotten so used to it, just reject it out of my mind immediately, just nullify that thought, whatever, out. And the more you do it, the more the mind and the brain together learn, hang on, he doesn't want that. And you get less and less of those sort of negativities to the point where you just have generally quite very peaceful. I'm a very peaceful person. I mean, occasionally, I think the universe sends me, challenges to test that. but overall, it's that's the way. It's perspective, really. It's perspective. I mean, I could look at things differently and say, I don't have this or that or whatever, and complain. But I think, well, I don't see it that way. And I think that I'm not deluding myself in my attitude either. I'm actually being very honest, thinking, well, look at what I do have. It is tremendous. And I think most people would say I'm very, very fortunate by worldly standards to have what I have in my life. And being aware of that and grateful for that in itself, I think that it just gives you that ability just to drive forward in anything you do. I mean, that's one aspect. And also, obviously, through my meditative practices, I bring peace. But I just have total confidence in myself to achieve. But as I said, it really comes down to success. It's not about money. It's about what I feel needs to be done. And also, I have a personal vision about what, almost like a legacy for when I do transition one day from this earth, is what do I want to leave behind? And I want to leave the world in a better place in the ways that are meaningful to me. And creativity is meaningful to me. And helping people in any way I can is meaningful to me. So as I said, I'm a success already. Just by pursuing those things is successful. So that's why I look at it.
Thank you for sharing that, Reverend Andrew. I like what you mentioned about when you're doing what you love to do, you have less space to think about the money. And it's also the space when you are thinking about it less that it actually is more drawn to you.
It is, yeah.
The less anxious you are about money, the more it is drawn to you. And at the same time, I love what you mentioned about what legacy are you going to leave behind, because I'm an advocate of balancing people, planet, and profit. Because like what you mentioned, we can't delude ourselves because we still need money to pay for things. And honestly, for example, I have a graphic artist. I think he does an amazing job for all my shows and all the work that he's doing. And one of the things that I consider money to be, it's a tool so that we can all do what we love to do. Because we're all going to need to pay for stuff. And since we're all going to need to pay for stuff, we want to come from a place where we are grateful and realize how fortunate we are, like what you mentioned. Those things are very powerful words to associate money with, because unfortunately, we've been associating money with, I'm not sure if both of you experienced this in your families, but here in the Philippines, a lot of families experience money as discussion where people fight about it because of programmed beliefs of lack and limitation. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work hard so that you can receive money. So a lot of things like that becomes a regular part of the mass consciousness in my country. That's why one of my motivations for practical magic is to make people understand, like what Reverend Andrew mentioned earlier, how you work on your mind to make it as beautiful as possible. It will actually draw to you experiences where you will feel fortunate, and that feeling fortunate draws to you more good, more delightful things to enjoy. And at the same time, I know Dr. Anita's been in business for a really long time now. And of course, money and profit, they go together, and purpose. So, Mom, do you want to expand on it?
Um, money, profit, and purpose. If I may, I just like to share, Reverend. Well, money, profit. I did want to respond. Share. Go piggyback on Reverend Andrew. Money, profit, and purpose. Well, your purpose is. I want to stick to what you just asked me. Your purpose is what you came here for. As far as money and profit, that has nothing to do with your purpose. Finding well, I gotta piggyback. I'm sorry. Finding your purpose. I mean, finding your purpose. That has things to do with your self-belief, like Reverend Andrew said. When he mentioned self-belief, the first thing I thought of was Dr. Masters. In his theocentric psychology course, he indicates that is part of, it's called intellectual evaluation comprehension, where we let the past dictate how we feel today. Like, I can't get any further. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be this because of what happened in the past and as far as the education. And that has everything to do with our beliefs, right? Like what you said, Reverend Andrew. As far as like the gratitude, so money, profit, and purpose. I'm trying to tie all this in. Okay, so with the money, profit, and purpose, bringing more profit to you is also okay to be satisfied. I know I grew up in a world where they said never be satisfied where you are. Well, I've learned not to be satisfied means to lack gratitude. So as you were saying, Reverend Andrew, when you're grateful, that's when you bring goodness, goodness and everything to you in your life. Money, profit, purpose. Okay, so we're doing the purpose, and the profit will come not necessarily monetarily, but it's going to come intrinsically. And when you mention money, profit, and purpose leaving a legacy. When you mentioned leaving a legacy, I thought of Maya Angelou when she said people may remember what you said, people may remember what you did, but people are always going to remember how you made them feel. That's our purpose, is to help people feel good. Our purpose is to enhance. My mother, she taught us, she said, nobody can create happiness for you. Nobody can make you happy. Money, purpose, and profit. However, you go into another person's life, they come into your life to enhance money, purpose, profit. So I hope I answered that question as far as money, purpose, and profit. So when you are fulfilled, when you, like you said, Reverend Andrew, when you know who you are and what you came here to do. Oprah Winfrey said it, 20, 30 years ago. If you love what you do, the money is going to follow, because we talked about it earlier. Energy, like attract like. On practical magic, the first thing that's being talked about, we're talking about the law of attraction. Money, profit, purpose, law of attraction. Once you know who you are, you're going to attract whatever your belief is. You're going to attract that money or lack thereof. You're going to attract that profit or lack thereof. You're going to be on your purpose or not. So it's money, purpose, profit is all about knowing, it's all about reaching that state. The number one, money, purpose, profit. If you ask me one word, I would say leave that alone and work on your fulfillment. Then you will receive and achieve money, profit, and you'll be working in your purpose.
Thank you for sharing that. And I also want to I also want to share this to our viewers because I'm a big reader of Dr. Catherine Ponder's books, where she talks about the importance of tithing time, talent, and treasure. And I also come from a family where my siblings are good business people, and I know that they're also looking after my welfare. So one of the things that I also want to emphasize, because Dr. Anita and I are working on a project to build a school, um, and I'm gonna give her the chance to share about it later. So one of the things that I learned in my metaphysical studies is that if you want to achieve more profit, it's so important to consider the community that will benefit from it, because as you are wanting to achieve more materially, you also want a portion of that income to go to a cause that will empower more people. So in that sense, I'm very excited that we're working on building a school, and I'll give her the chance to share it later, because one of the things that I constantly learn from people in my business circle is that every time there's a profit, there has to be a portion of it that's allotted for community enhancement, whether it goes to education or allowing people to have free meals for students who don't have yet the capacity to pay for their meals because they have so many expenses with college education or university education, and just being able to eat 3 times a day is also not part of their budget at the moment, because they're not just in that space. And that's why I'm bringing that into the topic of discussion, because in metaphysics, we look at money as a medium of exchange, and at the same time as a medium to create more good, more empowerment for ourselves. And to me, it's so important because it uplifts the human dignity. Um, Artists, for example, especially here in my country, my graphic artist and I would talk about this. Not all graphic artists are paid very well, because people think, why will people want to pay for graphic work when they can just get it from, mass produced artwork or graphic work. But because I'm the type of person who likes to support people to do what they love to do, then I make sure that I look for people who do what they love to do. And when I have projects, I involve them in my projects. So, because I love what I'm doing. And I also want to attract more people to hire me, so that I can constantly do what I love to do. But at the same time, I'm already thinking in my head about my money will also benefit the community uh, as part of our culture in our business circle. So now I want to give the floor to Dr. Anita to talk about the school.
Oh.
Yes, go ahead, Mom.
Oh yes, thank you so much, my son. Yes, it was the Angels Dream Team. It came about, started with my son's show. He called me to ask me to be the guest. There was a featured guest, Jennifer Hill, which we have become very, very close sister friends. I just love her. And on the show, Reverend Red mentioned that she built 9 schools. And in my mind, I'm like, 9 schools. I said, this sister must got. Whoo! I said, I got to talk with her because about Oprah Winfrey, when she built that first school in Africa, I have wanted to build a school, but I just thought that was something that was just beyond me. I mean, you say, who built a school? Anyway, being on my son's show, I was able to meet with her right after that show. I inboxed her immediately. I said, can we talk? She immediately responded back to me, and we had a very nice chat. She introduced me to Maurice, who's part of the Massachusetts Build On. It's buildon.org. That's who we are partnering with. So then from there, now we have Courtney from Chicago. She's stationed out of Chicago. So what it is, okay. I approached my meeting for my girls and my sons-in-law, grandchildren. So we're the Angels Dream Team. That's how it got started, the Angels Dream Team. And I shared it with my son, and he, so gracious and blessed that now the contribution is every month. The fundraiser is going to be able to be talked on either, I think, on the different perspective, right?
Yeah, and the perspective show, yeah.
Yeah, and the
Putting things in
perspective.
perspective.
Yes, my son is allowing one day out of a month to talk about the show. So now, of course, he's yeah. Now we're in the team. Our team is growing. So now we are building. What we're doing is building a school in Burkina Faso, Africa. Burkina Faso means land of the honored people. We chose Burkina Faso because now Burkina Faso is a country that has 35 cities. However, and they're thriving. However, the rural area is so disproportionate to the prosperity. The rural areas, no electricity, no different things like that. Children having to walk to school for 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to school. The average child may go to school for 1.5 years when the overall average is 8.5. The fertility rate in Burkina Faso in the rural area is very high. However, the literacy rate is very low. So we chose Burkina Faso, and also because that area, that region is the seventh poorest country in the region, also all over the world. So we want to start our first school.
Yes.
We are
So
building the Angels team, including my son Reverend, the Angels team, and I got to set you up a thing too. The Angels Dream Team. We are building the school in Burkina Faso. Now there's such a thing called Trek Immersion, where people are able to actually go and travel to the country and help actually help with the sand and the cement and the earth soil to help build. Now, however, COVID, that's out anyway, but because Burkina Faso, the surrounding areas, from what I'm understanding, because I'm still learning about it, because this is new. So, but what I'm understanding is the areas surrounding that, it's very dangerous to travel. So right now, they're saying in August or September, they're not sure if we're going to be able to do a Trek immersion. But I said that's okay, because our priority is not to go to a land to say, hey, I helped build a school. Our priority is to build that school, whether we're able to Trek immersion on it or not. So Burkina Faso, and also it was Jennifer. She shared with me, if you want to fall in love, they said 2021 Burkina Faso is one of the countries to fall in love with.
thank you, thank you so much, Mom, for sharing
Thank
it. And
you,
because
Reverend.
we're talking about breaking through, making breakthroughs this 2021. I know for myself that one of the things that really helped me have breakthrough experiences is to be able to extend a portion of yourself to projects that you believe in, even if you don't think that it's actually going to help you. Because for most people, we try to rationalize with our head brains that in order to achieve a goal, we have to be 100% fully focused on that goal. And sometimes we think that if we allow ourselves to be in the space where we have to give to other causes that are not related to our goals, then we feel that it's not actually going to help. But honestly, over the years, and it has really helped me out, I know that when you extend yourself in projects that you feel strongly about so that others can also benefit and thrive, it has a way of helping you break through experiences. That's why I'm excited for Reverend Andrew to get more of his books out to readers who are confused maybe or feeling limited at the moment, because it's not easy what he did to get yourself out of the place where you're depressed and taking medications, and then all of a sudden you self-study and then you take yourself out of the equation of having to medicate and then having to go through psychiatric treatments that you mentioned earlier. So, Reverend Andrew, please tell us more about your experience, because I'm profoundly amazed that it was your, dedication towards working with yourself and going within, as the title of your book suggests. Please share more about your book so that our viewers can benefit from it.
Oh, okay. Well, there is 19 chapters that goes through the various aspects. As I said, it's a holistic approach where a lot of the time you go to a therapy, you're not going to get that. A lot of the time, what I found from personal experience was, particularly with psychiatry, when they gave you drugs and medication, it was always really about how can we make you feel better, not necessarily get better. And there's a big difference between the two.
Right.
So that's what I found, and I wasn't really getting better anyway. That's the thing. But so when I started to really become aware, just thinking about what is setting me off, what is going on inside of myself, just everything. I just stopped and thought, what is really going on here? What is wrong? And in the early days, I would sit sometimes in silence for times, and I would just sit there with my eyes closed, and I would just asking myself inside my mind a lot of questions about why do I feel like this? Why do I feel like this? And in time, answers would come, and I'd start to make all these great insights as a beginning, and some of it was a little bit challenging, when I make these great insights. I mean, this was the beginning, but then I started to notice, I mean, goodness, there's so many aspects to this. It's where do I sort of begin? I touched on before about, for instance, about movies and things like that. But when we look at our society as a whole, it puts a lot of pressure on people to, we touched on before too, about the idea of success, about this idea that, feeling like we're not good enough unless we've succeeded, and a lot of the time that's related to, well, status is one thing, but often it's about money. And that puts pressure on people already. And so people are always living in this future moment, I've got to get there, and then I'll feel okay. Or once I get this thing, then I'll feel okay. And advertising does that too. Like, buy my thing and then you'll feel better. And you see it in so many ways how, a lot of products are about that, about, just selling people these things to try and feel better. But to sort of jump ahead quite a long way, what I found and discovered anyway is that everything you really seek is already within inside yourself. And so that peace that I was looking for was always inside myself. It was never external to myself. It was never going to come from a pill. It was never going to come from a person or a job or a new car or none of those things. And there's nothing wrong with having nice things or money, or nothing wrong with those things. I want to make that clear. I have no problems with people having millions and billions of dollars at all. What I'm getting at here is that when we're always seeking something outside of ourselves for this peace, it's always going to elude us. We might find it for a little time and then we'll lose it. But I'm getting a little bit off track too here as well with getting down to the mental health issue. So as I said, I did touch on before about these program beliefs. That is a really core part of everything about understanding about ourselves. And I mean, some people might be familiar with this. The great philosopher Socrates, I believe it was he who said, know thyself, get to know yourself. And it's a very, very deep sort of understanding when you really think about what he's saying there. I mean, just that aspect in itself, when we start to get to know ourselves and why we are the way we are and why we think and feel the way we are, that in itself is tremendously helpful in helping us start to work towards, wellness and a better state of mind, because we do have control of that. It's such a hard thing to sum up. I mean, I've got my book in front of me. I mean, there's 19 chapters, and I've talked about the first chapter, the society's effect on the mind, which is going into a lot of these aspects which we've touched on already with the music and movies and advertising, all those sort of things that put pressure on people. I mean, even social media, that's a huge thing. I mean, I know people I talk to and they feel that their life's not going well because they look at everyone else's photos. But I said, look, nobody's putting up the photos of when they had an argument with someone, or when things weren't working out. They're always putting up the nice photos. So you can't gauge your life based on those things. It's artificial in that sense. It's not real, in that sense. Everybody has problems. I mean, if you're single, people sometimes have problems, feeling loneliness. But then people who are in relationships have problems when they don't have enough time for themselves and a whole bunch of other things. So there's always challenges in life in different ways, but we've got to find that peace and balance and harmony within ourselves. And that's what it comes down to, that a lot of the time you'll hear terms to do with mental health, such as mental illness. But if it's an illness, it means we can be well. We can turn it into wellness. I mean, there's all sorts of terms. Like, I can't think of all now, but that generally used to do with mental health. But the thing is, all of that is reversible. I mean, some of the other things I mentioned before, we talked about energy. That's in the book, the mind. I talk an awful lot about that aspect of understanding that, the environment, the food. I've got one on the thought diet, physical exercise in itself. That's important. A lot of people don't do enough of that. But when we understand as well the aspect of the mind and the physiology of the whole body, it's all one. We've got to work with everything together. The will, self-belief. I touched on before, the past, present, future. Most people's minds, if they stop and think, when when they're feeling any kind of negative emotion or negative
Yeah.
feeling of any kind, their mind will be either dwelling in something in the past or worrying about the future. But both of those things are phantom. The past is gone, and the future hasn't happened in the sense of, like, when people get anxious about something, they're concerned about this thing might happen, but most things never happen that people are worried about. They just don't. They're in this perpetual belief that it will, and that's just causing. I mean, we cause our own suffering most of the time. So we've got to get our mind in check, and we've got to do that by eliminating things that are working against us, and then cultivate, towards things that are going to help us. New thoughts, new, get rid of the old programs. It's a very deep subject, and I know we're probably running out of time, so I'm just trying to find the best way to sort of sum it up in some way for you.
Yeah. I'd like to ask you, Reverend Andrew, because I know the transformation isn't easy. It's a step-by-step thing, at least for me. That's what worked out for me. I want to ask you, was it something like you just went cold turkey when you realized, you know what, I'm done with the medications and now I'm ready to change my life? Or were you the type who had to go through that one step at a time?
I'm pretty extreme. I went full on at it, and I would recommend the way I went about it to just about anybody. I'll tell you one thing. For instance, I did learn about the mind when I started to realize the aspects of it. That look, all of our minds lie to us if we're not aware of it. They tell you all little things, that why not to do things, why to do all these sort of things. It works against us if we don't have it in check. So one of the extreme things that I did when I realized this aspect of mind, this mind chatter which was working against me, and this is quite extreme, but it worked. I said to my mind, closed my eyes, I said, look, if you don't stop with this extreme, thinking at the time, I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into a cold shower, right? Because what I realized was the mind and the body are one. So I know this is quite extreme, and I'm not a fan of the cold anyway. So I did this one time. I got in the shower, turned it on cold. I just got in for a few seconds. And boy, it was wintertime too, and where I lived at that time, it was cold. And it really shocked my system. But because it shocks the system, it throws the whole mind out. That whole negative thinking just went, because it was extreme. And I thought I'd had enough of the cycles and that. So it stopped. And then the next time it happened a few days later, you've got to follow through. If you're going to put things on your mind too, say, if you don't stop doing this, I'm going to do this. You've got to follow through with the thing you say, because what happened a few days later, it went back into the same cycle. And I just stopped, and I said in my mind, said, look, if you don't stop doing this, thought pattern or whatever it was, I said, I'm going to hop in the cold shower again, and I'll do it because I've done it before. So you'd sense it talking to your own body and mind. I know it might sound a little strange, but it is all very conscious. And it worked, and it stopped right there. And this is when I started to become a master of myself, because I was mastering my own mind. And that's what we've got to do. We have got to take charge of our minds. Once we get charge of our minds and our thoughts, then we take charge of our life, and then we have to control. Then we have the beliefs that we can go, yes, I believe I can do this. And the negativity, nothing's going to stop you. Nothing absolutely is going to stop you when you get that much control in your mind. I mean, I'll tell you, the peace in that I have now in my life and the control, there's actually a biblical aspect to this, where the peace that passes all understanding.
Yeah.
And I have that in my life now. And a lot of people, and I'm so used to it now, that when people freak out around me, can't believe you this and that, like, I'm just not phased at all. That's where I'm going, and I'm just not concerned at all. Anyway, I believe everybody can cultivate that. We can all do this. We just work on it. We can do it. And that's what I want for everybody. And I've got not just this book, but there's things I've got new ideas and workshops at the moment I'm working on to help people with all sorts of aspects of life, to do with, if you're finding yourself in self-sabotaging behavior, or you're finding yourself in sort of cycles with certain relationships, for instance, patterns and things like that, how to break those. I'm even looking at the aspects of law of attraction, because I've been very involved with that community, and there's a lot of misunderstanding in there, and to be honest, there's a lot of nonsense in that area, and I think it needs someone to come along and just say, look, enough's enough. Let's look at it properly. This whole idea of just sitting there and closing your eyes and wishing and everything's going to fall in your lap, it's just not going to happen for you. Like, let's be honest, So, and we just got to cut that out and help people. So, and cultivate a good life, the life people want, purposeful. So I've got a lot of ideas, and it's all about just, in the joy of helping others.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Reverend Andrew and Dr. Anita. I really believe what Dr. Master said, that one of the mindset in University of Metaphysics that is so deeply ingrained in the students is serving the best in you so you can help others. And we talked about the law of attraction, but another term for it actually is the law of sowing and reaping. You attract because you sowed something in consciousness. That's why you're attracting, you're reaping something. And
Yes.
I love that Reverend Andrew is talking about you have to put in some effort. And
Mhm.
in a way, it was good for marketing that we talked about law of attraction, but you also have to know other components why you're attracting, especially one of the things that I believe are amazing tools to help you break through, to get you your breakthrough year, this 2021, is what Reverend Andrew mentioned about realizing how fortunate you are, being able to realize maybe it's the food that you eat. Maybe it's realizing that you live in a nice place, realizing that you're blessed enough that you want to contribute more beauty in the world around you through your creative talents and abilities. And also what Dr. Anita mentioned earlier about, how you light up because you realize how blessed you are and you want to do something that's never been done in your life before, like building a school. Because both of us are actually raving about it, realizing that even if you feel that you're challenged at the moment, you realize that there are other people who can actually benefit from what you think is already in excess of what you have. It's such an amazing thing. And I want to share this, Mom. I think you're forgetting this important story. I know Dr. Anita to be very generous of her time, talent, and treasure. And yesterday, allow me to share this because it's such an amazing story. She got an amazing gift for Facebook from one of her friends to receive $500 on Facebook ads. Remember? And you see, so many things actually lines up for you to demonstrate your goal, sometimes without you even thinking about it, but because you are pure in your intention to break through, not just for yourself, but to create breakthrough experiences for the rest of the community. All the other things line up to make that possible. And that's why I'm so excited with what Dr. Anita is doing and what Reverend Andrew is also doing, because I know we need to hear more stories of how we all move past our limitations, because sometimes you don't know it's the story that another person needs to hear in order for them to transform and break through their limitations. So anyway, I also want to give the floor to Reverend Andrew. If our viewers would like to get in touch with you, how can they keep in touch with you? Where can they find you?
Okay, well, they can contact me through my website or through my Facebook page. I'm not sure the best way. Is there a way that we can post the website address?
Yeah.
Um,
Mike, please put the screen. We're just going to type it. Yes, go ahead, please.
okay, so I'll type it into you because my name's quite a long name, and it might be a little bit challenging for people to write it down. So, okay, so all right, so I've just sent you there the website. So people feel free to email me, contact me in any way.
All right. That's Andrew Espie-Whitburn.com. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes,
All right.
yes, that's it.
Uh,
Yes.
this is where you can keep in touch with Reverend Andrew. So I want to share with everyone, he's a metaphysical minister, life coach, and at the same time, a visual artist. I think it's just nice to point that out because I'm also part of several groups on Facebook that are art related to visual arts. And at the same time, I trust to have him in my perspective show so that he can talk more about his book. And we know that life transformation is really a matter of perspective. It doesn't just happen in
Hmm. Yes,
uh, it can change, but I know that our perspective also evolves over time.
that's
So
right.
I,
Yes.
yeah, thank you for that, Reverend Andrew. And now I want to give the floor to Dr. Anita. Mom, where can they find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Oh, sure. Thank you, my son. You can, the best way to get in touch with me would be through Facebook. So that's just DRANITA, C is in charming, .com. So that's the tag for Facebook. And then my email address is VibinHive, VIBINHIGH 369 at Gmail. And those are the best ways to get in touch get in touch with me. And of course, if you want to call me, that would be 1-313-605-8220. And I'm on Eastern Standard Time. And I'd love to hear from you. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much for sharing those. So I trust that you're all gonna keep in touch with them, especially, a lot of people actually devote, uh, a big portion or some portion of their income for metaphysical services. I want to share with our viewers, before I became an ordained minister myself, I also went through energetic healing, counseling, coaching. That's why I'm able to share the beauty of metaphysics to all of you. So please do get in touch with Reverend Andrew and Dr. Anita. I'm very sure that they can help you out and find if you can work together in a particular goal. So the next one is I also want to share with everyone some of the people who help make the show grow into how it is today, because one of the things that I shared with our viewers, I also had to evolve over time to make practical magic possible with the help of some friends. So I want to mention Unity Philippines Spiritual Center, Benedict International School. I want to thank them for the help in the beginning of the show. Mike, is that your laptop that's making the sound for the echo? All right. So next, I also want to highlight on University of Metaphysics. I know Reverend Andrew has something to share about the university. Would you like to talk about your experience being part of the International Metaphysical Ministry?
Oh, it's been one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life. Absolutely. It introduced me to greater depths of metaphysics, but it really then brought me into a greater depth into the area of even mysticism, which is essentially union with God or the divine, however people prefer to, use the term. But I mean, it's well worth the study. It's absolute gift. I mean, I watched the videos, actually just the free videos on YouTube all the time of Dr. Masters, for instance, and I think, what a great man, what a great blessing he's been on this earth for all of us.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Thank you for that, Reverend Andrew. I also want to ask you, were you the type who had to juggle school and work at the same time? Because it's something that I had to do myself.
Well, I think being a single person certainly helps with that. Absolutely, because I have been in environments with other people before who have had children and things, and I can see the challenges when there's a lot more people around and responsibilities. But I'm also someone who doesn't generally sleep a lot, which probably helps. Yeah, so I've always been very good at getting things done. I just have a determination, but nothing really feels like that much hard work for me. I just I set goals, and it's like that's what I'm doing, and I find the way. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because some of our viewers are actually asking, so how are they going to find the time to actually juggle school and work? But I tell them, it's something that a lot of us in University of Metaphysics actually, we just get our goals done by juggling all those things. And for you, Mom, would you like to share a thing or two about the International Metaphysical Ministry?
Oh, absolutely. I love it. If it were not for the University of Metaphysics, Sedona, I would not have on my wall American Metaphysical Doctors Association, Masters of Metaphysical Science, Bachelor of Metaphysical Science, Doctor of Metaphysical Science. I would not have that. I have been wanting to enter into a school of metaphysics for years before the universe brought me on searching online one time, and I came across the University of Metaphysics, and since then I've attended 3 of the graduations. I spoke at one of the graduations. The faculty and staff are absolutely phenomenal. I just received, and I felt so good. I just received a private message from one of my fellow coaching fellow coaching classmates, where she emailed, she private messaged me and said, you know what, I've been following you, and because of just following you, I enrolled in the University of Sedona.
Wow,
That
fantastic.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely love University of Metaphysics Sedona. They are my family. they're just Michelle, Reverend Kim,
Yeah.
Reverend Lynn. I mean, they're my family. I just love International
Yeah.
Medical Group and the university. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you, Mom and Reverend Andrew. In fact, I feel every time I'm guesting someone from the school, from the International Metaphysical Ministry, I feel like I'm welcoming soul family members every time I have the show. So, one of the most fantastic things I also want to share with everyone, we have a doctoral program. And if you're going to pay it in full, you're going to pay $990 only. And if you're on a tight budget, you can pay a down payment of $90 and then make $25 for the installment. So it's very affordable. For those of you who would like to get world-class education on life coaching, mystical research, and other things related to that, please check the website. And I know that if it resonates with you, it's great value for your money and your time. And another thing, please flash the screen. I also want to thank everyone who's guested on the show, Reverend Andrew today and Dr. Anita. She's been with us in the first episode of the first season, and also Dr. Diana Vihuni, Dr. Cindy Palos, Reverend Anthony Benton Brown, and Reverend Adam Hayden. Of course, Dr. Yolanda Dukes, Jennifer Hill, Dr. Stephen and his wife, Tene, Dr. Kathleen Riley, and Tina Brinkley Potts. Thank you all for gracing the show, and I trust to have more of you. And also, I invite everyone to get a copy of Reverend Andrew's book, The Way Out is Through the Way In. So is this available through Amazon?
It certainly is, as both ebook and as paperback.
Awesome. Fantastic. So, I'm so excited, especially I'm thinking maybe when we have a better situation for all of us, we can have conventions or book launches in the Philippines with the rest of our community. So that's all for now, everyone. And I trust that you were all able to pick up a thing or two about it, because what I'm going to take out from our conversation tonight is to realize how fortunate you are and to be grateful for everything that you have. And also getting excited to extend yourself, especially Mom's project about building a school. I know is such a powerful thing to feel more expanded for your benefit and at the same time empower others. So having said all that, I just want to invite everyone to close your eyes so we can just affirm this together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is and all is well. Satnam, everyone. So thank you very much to our tech team, Michael, my co-producer, Sir Charlie, Sir Rolly, and all our viewers. Thank you for all your comments and your feedback, because you help us step up our game. And at the same time, I want to remind everyone, remember, you're the magic you've been waiting for. Satnam and have fun.
Consistently delivering the very best in metaphysics. Here in Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Till next time, only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Tunog Pinoy, Tatak Pinoy, your all hits, all Pinoy digital radio station in South Manila. This is V81 Radio.
Ito ang paborito ng bawat Pilipino. Basta all hits, all Pinoy, panalo. Merong kwentong iyakan at tawanan. Kahit nasaan ka man, ito'y mapapakinggan.